What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of Best Bets and Props, where I go over all of my betting action for this weekend's UFC card, which is another international card. Last week it was UFC Singapore. This weekend we have a midday fight card at UFC Paris, featuring two heavyweights. The striker from France himself, Cyril Gane, takes on the Moldovan grappler Sergey Spivac in the main event. Potentially 5 rounds of action should we need all of them. I don't think we will, but we also have a fun co-main event between the former strawweight champion Rose Namajunas as she returns to take on, at flyweight this time, Manon Fiorot, who is a French striker and surging prospect, undefeated in the UFC right now. So it's a pretty fun main and co-main event. The rest of the card features a lot of international talent. I think like 6 fighters right now are making their debut, and a couple more are making their second stint in the promotion after a long time away. So not a whole lot to be confident in from my opinion. You know, it's always sketchy betting on newer fighters making their first walk to the cage. I do have 3 moneyline bets and just 1 prop bet. So as far as my total betting action, not a lot stuck out to me to bet. So I have maybe less than half of what I normally have for a weekend of UFC fights betting wise. But, you know, trying to maintain some discipline here and, you know, just if the value's not there, if my read isn't there, the confidence isn't there, I'm just not going to force any action. So I've got those 3 money lines I'll speak on, the 1 prop, but I'll talk about what fighters I'm confident in, you know, maybe from a parlay perspective, and, you know, which fights I see violence in at the end. For analysis on all 22 fighters, all 11 fights on this card, check out last night's live stream I did with Mushroom MMA. Super fun time. He's a very entertaining and smart gambler, has his own YouTube channel, so make sure to go follow my guy Mushroom MMA. We had a good time. But yeah, we broke down the fights in their entirety, but I'm just going to cover my betting action and my confident plays in this card, so should be a pretty short one. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Let's break into the first money line I have, which is, I believe, in the second or third fight of the prelims, Jocelyn Edwards I'm taking at -109 on her money line. Even money pick or slight underdog, you could call it, for Jocelyn Edwards at bantamweight as she takes on the debuting fighter Nora Canola. And Jocelyn Edwards, the younger woman here by 7 years at 27 years old. She's a Panamanian striker. She's going to be quite a bit bigger than Nora Canola, in my opinion, just longer and rangier. But Jocelyn Edwards has all of the UFC experience, going 4-2 in the league at this point. She's got a pretty good distance management ability about her with her kicking game. Super high output striker. She's managed to put up over triple-digit significant strikes in a couple of fights so far in the UFC. And Nora Canola is making her debut, and she's only been a professional for a few years now. And half of those fights in her pro record were already in 2023. So facing a pretty soft level of competition. She's got a 100% finish rate. A lot of her opponents, see the door, see the exit, and take it pretty quickly when she applies the pressure. One fighter actually injured herself, pretty early into the fight. So not a high level of competition, but she's handling them appropriately, right, and getting 5 knockouts and 1 submission. But Nora Canola, I don't think her wrestling is good enough to find Jocelyn Edwards and take even Edwards to the mat and control her there, which is the weakness of Edwards as a solid kickboxer. So, yeah, I mean, suffering defeat from girls like Carol Hossa, Jessica Rose Clark on the mat, and even last time out against Lucie Pudilova, Edwards probably lost that fight on a lot of people's scorecards due to the anti-wrestling being pretty weak on her part. But I don't think Nora Canola is going to be able to have success there. I think Edwards is mobile enough, fast enough, and just long and rangy enough to just snipe her from the outside and probably just win a pretty clear-cut decision here. So give me Jocelyn Edwards. I'm just putting 1.09 units at -109 to win 1 in return. Moving up the prelims to a welterweight bout between Analusa and McKee. I've got 2 units on Analusa at -175. And I really do think he's got multiple paths to victory here. He's a pretty technical kickboxer and boxer, but he's got a good use of his wrestling skills as well, good takedown ability, good durability, and he's got some solid cardio to back everything up. So pretty good athletic potential from Analusa to improve. He's still only 29 years old. He takes on McKee, who's making his second stint in the UFC after dropping his first 2 bouts to Alex Morono and Khamzat Chimaev in 2020. He got released. He went to Cage Warriors, got 3 finished victories recently since he's been away from the UFC. And McKee's going to be the bigger, longer guy here, trying to outbox and outkickbox Analusa from the outside. Analusa, I think, can play that game because he's fought some technical strikers recently, like Munir Lazez, who beat him in his debut, and also against Jack Della Maddalena, but he stayed safe against the finishing potential of those guys, especially Jack Della. Was impressive to go to the scorecards with him on the Contender Series, absorbing all of the boxing strikes from Jack Della, and even almost finishing Jack by an arm triangle. Analusa locked up at one point in that fight. So pretty versatile guy, and why I bring up how tough he is and how durable he is because McKee has a 100% finish rate. He's never won a fight that's gone to the scorecard. So relying on that finishing ability against a guy in Analusa who seems very hard to put away and has never been finished, that kind of spells a recipe for disaster in this fight, in my opinion. Not to mention McKee, not really like a one-punch knockout power kind of guy. It's usually TKOs due to the accumulation and fatigue of his opponents, the accumulation of damage that they take from him later in the fight. We're seeing round 3 stoppages, round 4 stoppages, not like a one-punch knockout KO most of the time from McKee. So I expect Analusa to win this fight, probably win it by decision, as he's known to do. He's not the most powerful guy himself. But I think he's got multiple ways to win this fight, especially if he goes to the wrestling early and often. So at minus 175, pretty confident on him to win this fight. Analusa, 2-unit play on him. And my third and final money line is all the way up on the co-main event. I've got Manon Fiorot at flyweight, defeating the former strawweight champion Rose Namajunas. And Rose Namajunas is making a pretty late in her career change of weight class here. She was never the biggest strawweight going, even though she captured the title at that weight class 2 times against very good opponents, knocking out Joanna Jędrzejczyk back in like 2017, pretty early in round 1, and then also knocking out via head kick in 60 seconds Zhang Weili, which, both of those are very impressive fights to win, especially as an underdog when she got those victories. And she went on to beat Zhang Weili in the rematch by a very close split decision that went her way back in 2021. So I don't take anything away from the credentials of Rose Namajunas, who's still 31 years old, but her last performance was a big indicator of where she's at, losing that split decision to Carla Esparza about a year and a half ago at this point, and one of the worst performances in a title fight we've ever seen from any weight class. So very hesitant to throw anything, very hesitant to just engage in her skill set of any sort. She's a very slick striker from the outside, sticking and moving with some decent speed, and she's a slick grappler on the mat, but we didn't get a chance to see any of those skills employed in that fight. And she's somebody who's been contemplating retirement, and why wouldn't she be? She's already reached the mountaintop twice. Both won the title as an underdog, lost it, won the title as an underdog, and lost it again in pretty embarrassing fashion. So what she has left to prove, I'm not quite sure. And now moving up a weight class and facing somebody who's undefeated in Manon Fiorot, who's fighting in her home country of France, a very technical southpaw striker, more of a karate striker, but somebody who's gotten takedowns in all of her UFC fights where she's gone 5-0 so far. Manon Fiorot is a very, very scary threat at this point, who's got all of the momentum, hasn't lost a pro fight since her debut as a pro, years ago. So I just don't see many ways for Rose to win this fight outside of landing one of those Hail Mary knockouts or submissions if they get in a scramble, which is possible, and Rose Namajunas is always capable of springing the upset. But I've got 2.5 units on Manon Fiorot at minus 175. And these prices still exist on the sports books. Hasn't moved a whole lot, which is a bit scary. I know that, not only is Manon Fiorot fighting in her home country here, but she, Rose Namajunas is a very big household name in the community. Former champion 2 times. She's very popular, so maybe that is keeping her money line where it's at, and maybe she'll even get some more love from the betting public as the week goes on. But I can't look past just the momentum difference between these two women and even the skill set difference. I think Manon Fiorot should be able to keep this standing and outpoint Rose Namajunas to a decision win. So like I said, biggest moneyline bet on Manon Fiorot, 2.5 units at minus 175. So those are the 3 money lines I have. I've got Jocelyn Edwards, I've got Analusa, and I have Manon Fiorot. The only other bet I have, bet number 4, is the under 1.5 in the 205-pound bout between Volkan Ozdemir as he welcomes the debuting Bogdan Guskov. Now, Bogdan Guskov is an Uzbekistan knockout artist making his somewhat of short-notice debut. This was supposed to be Volkan versus Azamat Mirzakhanov, but Bogdan makes his debut in front of a European crowd. He's 14-2 as a professional, and all 14 of his victories come inside the distance. And 14 of his fights in total end under 1.5 rounds. So you can see where I'm getting at, paying 1 unit at minus 130 for the under 1.5 prop in this fight. Volkan Ozdemir, also a knockout artist himself. Although his past 3 fights have all gone to decision, I still think it's going to be Bogdan Guskov who forces the issue here. Guskov really bullies forward, tries to be like kind of like a pull counter striker by keeping his hands down, baiting his opponents in, pressuring them backwards, and trying to throw mostly one punch at a time. You know, the big rear cross, the big overhand right. He is a sizable guy at 6'3", similar to the frame of Volkan Ozdemir, but his kicks are pretty good too for Bogdan Guskov. You know, he does have power, but it's against a very low-level opposition that he's been facing so far. And like I said, 12 knockouts. This guy has only been into round 3 2 separate times. One of those he lost, his only decision loss. So I don't see this fight going very far. I think Guskov is going to push the issue. And I think Ozdemir is going to take advantage of his lack of defense, keeping his hands kind of low confidently there. And Ozdemir has one-punch knockout power as well. His right hand is deadly. And if not, I think Ozdemir is live to get knocked out here as well. So I don't see much of a future. I don't see Guskov being very UFC caliber, but it's light heavyweight. There is that volatility. So I'm keeping the door open for a big upset here on the part of Guskov and just playing the violence prop. So, you know, it just kind of writes itself. Even if this does sneak past 1 round, I think shortly after Guskov gets off the stool, I think he's going to be pretty gassed and gets himself knocked out here. So give me that under 1.5, minus 130, just 1 unit on that prop. As far as the recommended plays go, I don't have many of those either, but there's one that stuck off the page at lightweight between Benoit Saint-Denis and Thiago Moises. Now, you know, I'm actually picking Thiago Moises to win this fight. I think this is a pretty big, either a lateral move in competition or a step down against the up-and-coming Benoit Saint-Denis, who's looked impressive, but, you know, the guy's faced limited competition so far, and he does have a 100% finish rate. But going along those lines, if Saint-Denis does win, I think it's early, and I think it is by finish, and I don't see him submitting the world champion BJJ specialist in Thiago Moises. So that leaves another option, Saint-Denis by knockout at plus 275, and I think it is pretty early within the first 1 or 2 rounds. Kind of bum rushing Thiago Moises, similarly to how Joel Alvarez did it a couple of years ago. So if Benoit Saint-Denis wins, like I said, I think it is by finish, like his record indicates 100% of the time, and I think it is going to be by knockout as opposed to submission. So plus 275 on that. Even inside the distance for Benoit Saint-Denis, still sitting around that plus 140 to plus 150 mark. Not a bad way to play it for somebody who has only been proven to win by finish. And along the lines of violence on this card and fighters I think that could get it done inside the distance, I'm liking the debuting Jacqueline Cavalcante at this catch weight of 140 against Zara Ferran dos Santos to get it done by knockout. Cavalcante to have a successful debut against the 0-3 39-year-old Ferran dos Santos. That's plus 200 for Cavalcante by knockout. If you want to even play it a little bit safer and just assume she gets it done by any method, the under 2.5 is minus 115, or the fight doesn't go to decision is at minus 125. And why I point those out as opposed to Cavalcante inside the distance, because the price is not that different. They're calling Cavalcante inside the distance at plus 105. So unless you're taking that knockout, which I think is likely at plus 200, just take the fight doesn't go to decision. That would cover both sides. It would cover a freak injury. But altogether, I think Cavalcante is the much more capable fighter here. Obviously, we've seen Ferran dos Santos, not very good striking defense or takedown defense at all. She's not very good. She's 0-3 in the league for a reason, and she's been finished in 2 of those 3 losses, coming by way of submission and knockout. So she's managed to lose by all 3 methods: decision, submission, and knockout. And this will probably be the last time we see this woman in the UFC. And I think Cavalcante is skilled enough to really make a statement against her in a debut spot here. And to wrap it up, a couple of fighters that I'm pretty confident in as parlay pieces. Even though their money line is pretty wide, I think you're safe to combine these guys with your favorite bets on this card to add some value to it. I like Farid Basharat at bantamweight to defeat Clayton Rodriguez. Basharat is a guy at 10-0, undefeated, so he's been pretty durable so far, and he's proven to win in multiple different facets of the game. His wrestling is strong. His striking is very strong as well, defensively and offensively. His speed and athleticism is on point, and his cardio checks out. So All of that with some pretty good fight IQ. I think Basharat's got a lot of ways to beat Clayton Rodriguez, who's coming up a weight class after some botched weight misses. And he's a very explosive, capable guy in all areas of the game as well. But I think it's really explosive moment-winning ability, catching Farid Basharat, which nobody else has done so far, with a strike that puts him out, or, a club and sub situation. I think it's all very unlikely. And I think the further this fight goes down the stretch, I think Farid Basharat can outstrike Clayton and put him on his butt with some takedowns. So I like Farid Basharat. Another confident fighter that I think is pretty parlayable on this card is Morgan Charrier, who's a French fighter making his debut, but he takes on another debuting fighter by the name of Manolo Zecchini. And I just think Charrier, just like Farid Basharat, has multiple ways to win this fight. Striking is on point, athleticism and speed is on point, and I do think he's very durable. Morgan Charrier also has a wrestling path to victory in this spot. He threatens submissions, his ground and pound is very strong, and I just think he's a very well-rounded fighter here against Manolo Zecchini, who's kind of a low-output counter striker who's capable enough, but I think this is just biting off a little bit more than he can chew in this debut spot. So Morgan Charrier, Farid Basharat, two guys I'm very confident in to get the job done. I think you're pretty safe to pair these guys with other confident plays on the card. So there you have it, you guys. All three of my moneyline plays, my one prop bet, and some recommended plays and parlay pieces on this card. Hit me in the comments with the ways that you plan on making money this weekend, your favorite bets, and your favorite fighters on this card. 11 fights to choose from. I didn't find very much, but I would love to know how you guys plan on making money at UFC Paris. So hit the like, hit the subscribe, enjoy the fights, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Cheers.